If you were listening to this program about this time, when was it? Last week? Gets away from me, might have been the week before. You would have heard Professor Simon Chapman, Professor of Public Health at the University of Sydney, with a slightly different hat on. His rock and roll hat, talking about a little fundraising gig that he had in North Sydney. How did it go, Simon?
Went very well, Robbie. We had about 180 people, and the charity Football Australia, they earned nearly $5,000, so they were very happy with it.
Oh, fantastic result. And what was some of the moves that you had up on stage?
Well, there weren't too many people moving because
weren't there?
There was a young audience. We play sort of 60s and 70s sort of Rolling Stones and Easy Beats and things. So it was a strange experience.
Those songs never date. They're always good.
For our generation.
Yeah, you're right. So, look, these e-cigarettes, maybe you'd know somebody who smokes them, maybe you smoke them yourself, or potentially you've seen people walking around with them. They have gained a lot of popularity in the last really year or two from just a few early adopters who bought them off the internet a couple of years ago to a lot of people who are smoking what looks like really a stick and just a tiny bit of vapour that comes out of them. What are they actually, Simon?
Well, they're electronic systems which basically, instead of burning tobacco, they don't use tobacco at all. They heat and vaporise liquid containing nicotine and flavourings, and so the user inhales that nicotine vapour through into their lungs, and that, of course, then is absorbed up to the brain, and the brain says, thanks very much, that's what I was craving.
So you got your hit. You would think that this would be a much healthier alternative to smoking cigarettes. You don't have all the thousands of chemicals, do you, from the smoke?
Oh, that's absolutely correct. I think there's nobody with any credibility in this area who would try to advance the proposition that they were anything as remotely as dangerous as cigarettes. And so the reasoning goes that, if you can get your nicotine addiction satisfied through something which is much, much less dangerous, then this has got to be a good thing. And that's the reasoning, that's the logic of the whole thing. But the really interesting thing is that now that there is a fair bit of information emerging about how they're being used, there's a bit of a gap between the promise and the reality.
Okay, because a lot of people are hoping to use these to wean themselves off nicotine addiction entirely. How's that going?
Well, some people, of course, are, and it's very easy to encounter individuals who have quit and who are very evangelical about it and saying, this is the best thing I ever did. But I've just been at a WHO meeting in Manila, and I've just finished editing a whole series of papers for the US Food and Drug Administration on this issue. And what's emerging is that there's around about 80% of people who are using vaping who are also continuing to smoke. And so two things arise there. Firstly, e-cigarettes holding people in smoking who might otherwise have quit. And we know, of course, that every year many people quit. Smoking rates are going down all the time. And secondly, the question arises that people say, well, look, if I'm smoking, say, 5 cigarettes, 10 cigarettes less a day, surely that's got to be better for me than continuing to smoking than the number of cigarettes I normally smoke. That sounds absolutely perfectly sensible to say that, but in fact, if you look at all the epidemiological data around the world, and there have been some very, very large studies. One in Korea was about half a billion people, half a billion people, and there has been some other ones in different countries which have followed people for sort of 10, 20 years and so forth. And what they've found is that, in fact, cutting down the number of cigarettes that you smoke compared to quitting confers really very little health benefit.
Really? So if you're on a pack a day and you move down to half a pack a day, your chances of staving off death from disease due to cigarette smoking aren't all that great.
Yeah, look, the Korean study showed that there was a decrease in lung cancer, but not in all smoking-related diseases. The other studies, one from Scotland, didn't show that. And what we call a systematic review of all the studies basically concluded with the advice that if you think that you're going to sort of protect your health in some way by not quitting but just reducing, there's not a lot of evidence that suggests that that's a good thing to do.
All right, so the suggestion here is quit, don't just cut down. Simon, always great to chat with you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Robbie.
Good on you. Professor Simon Chapman there, Professor of Public Health at the University of Sydney, just talking about these e-cigarettes. Yes, they're better than smoking, but you're better off quitting all of them if you possibly can.